video.
Google Drive. That's what I use. Google Drive, Evernote. Evernote, though, you can only put 15. I think 15 megabytes.
Yeah.
Google Drive, they allow much larger chunks, but they do want you to pay like $2 or $3 a month for it.
Yeah, yeah.
For 100.
They did let me use it, so without doing the extra monetary.
Okay,
So
very nice.
I think it was still within range.
Okay, so I guess going back to what I was saying. Okay, pros and cons. Pros and cons.
Pros and cons.
It's like, okay, because you were saying just like, all right. So it's okay. People say too much of anything is bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, by definition, right? Or it wouldn't be too much.
Yeah.
So when we consider personality models, any model, not just personality, it's like what parts of the world are irrelevant to this model and what parts of the world are relevant. So for whatever reason, I'm doing an encyclopedia on ducks, right? I'm writing an encyclopedia on ducks. And then for whatever reason, I've got one page on, let's say, kelp, right? I got something like kelp going on in there. And then it's like, that's, it's like, well, what are your goals? Like, what is your objective? Is your objective to have like a punchline, just a joke in there to make people laugh? Then that's not too much. It's just right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's what you want. It's some random chapter in there for people to go, ha ha ha, this is stupid, right? It's like, but if your goal is to educate people on, kind of make an exhaustive encyclopedia about duck anatomy for duck veterinarians or duck owners or for your own private amusement, it's like, well, it's like, maybe not so much. And so it's like, well, what are the potential, I think this is I think this is probably a strength for ENFPs and INFPs, is to be like, what emotional value points, what FI value points, what possible, the NEFI, what possible emotional value points could a person have and get out of framing the Enneagram in this way? What do they get?
Yeah.
What do they lose? Yeah. Right? Socionics, here's what they're doing. What do they get?
Yeah.
What do they leave on the chopping block? How do they frame their discussion? The vocabulary, here's what they get with their vocabulary.
Yeah.
Here's what they lose. Like, they get credibility and science-y and more serious-minded people, and they get a very strong TI framework. But what do they lose? They lose some flexibility. They lose some membership, harder to access, right, etc. It's like, and then it's like the way they approach their personality types. It's like, well, if you describe it like this, it's like, well, this is actually more or less representative of all humans. This is more or less it's just so many ways to take it.
Well, and that's also a problem with typology, because like, if you're considering psychology, which is the entirety of human experience, and also the entirety of like the collective human experience as well, because we're making an assumption that we all are different, but we all have similar traits. We shouldn't and can't have different lenses, right? There
Say that one more time.
A sense of uniformity, and so the question is where is that sense of uniformity? Like, why is that's one of the big reasons why typology isn't considered a science, right? Because because it wasn't like MBTI. They said it wasn't created through it wasn't discovered like scientifically sound way. It was just a theory that Jung created, and then you had the Myers come in and build off of it without any like formal psychological training. But even then, socionics took this model and they made it more consistent, more logical. But like, no, what's the core philosophy behind it? And that's something that's always kind of bugged me about every personality system, right? Is that your core philosophy behind it has to be grounded in something. I guess I'll say
a control group.
Yeah.
A control group.
A control.
Right?
Yeah.
But if every human ostensibly is 16 or 9 types, depending on Enneagram or social, whatever, It's like, then which one of these humans is your control group? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, whose behavior do you choose to determine? Because even the sociologics guy Benjamin I was listening to,
Mm-hmm.
he was talking about fake typists, right? And he was like, you have to be careful not to project behavior. He was like 90% of human behavior is going to be the same, no matter the type, even no matter the gender, no
Mm-hmm.
matter the culture. He's like we're humans before we're anything else,
Yeah.
right? He was like, so how can you distinguish that this trait is distinctively ENFJ
Mm-hmm.
and not basic human, right?
Yeah.
Without, and he didn't use this term, but this is the term I'm going to use, is without the Barnum effect coming in. It's like you already have this framework, and now you're going to look and be like, oh, that's SEFE. That's just
Mm-hmm.
stereotypical or SEFE behavior. And it's like, well, but if you, for other reasons, already believe that that person was an ESFJ, it's like, would you have said, oh, that's just stereotypical ESFJ behavior?
Mm-hmm.
It's just SI. It's like
Yeah.
without a control group. And so that's why you emphasize the flow of thoughts and feelings. You emphasize like that book that you're recommending, why we believe, or what was that
It's
one?
how we decide.
How we decide, right? And then the big five, right? That just that kind of gets us closer to averages, just statistical baselines. That gives
Mm-hmm.
us something slightly more solid. I would say considerably more solid for us
Yeah.
to make meaningful
Yeah.
distinctions
So
out of.
what Big Five does, the reason why they're more powerful, one, their predictive power is stronger, which makes it more valid. But the second thing is that their core philosophy is based around language. So they aggregated all of these concepts of the ideas of definitions, and they're like, okay, if a person is like all of these attributes, then okay, it's kind of similar to what I did with my color theory actually, where I took a bunch of attributes and I found the core concept. That's what that's what Big Five did. Is that they took a bunch of what individuals describe about people, and then they brought that down into a core
Mm.
concept to create. So the human element is not as inclusionary into that because, like for example, you're always going to call someone crazy, right? Everyone has an idea of what crazy means. In Spanish, you say loco. Loco and
Mhm.
crazy mean the same thing. So you're not going to lose that, right? Usually, crazy in general is like not normal, uh, outside normal average human behavior, unhinged. So, it's that kind of, and crazy would fall under neuroticism, right? So that's how Big Five was able to create theirs, was doing it through language. So
And that would be something you could elaborate on. Is all right. Big five, more human, less personality. Here's what it gets. It gets you. It's actually like a point of diminishing returns of the thing. In a certain sense, you could say with Big Five, you could get like 80% of what you need from any personality model just from that. And it's like,
mm-hmm.
but if you want that last 20%, it's like you can mess around with these other ones. It's
Yeah.
like because what you get is you lose accuracy potentially. It's like in many cases, you can potentially lose accuracy for a potential gamble in precision. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it's like this person's high in extroversion, because that's kind of how you are able to pinpoint. Like for example, my MBTI was through the use of Big Five because I didn't know anything about cognitive functions. I was just like, I just took
Yeah.
that test, and a few years ago it gave me INFP. This time it gave me INTP, and I just thought I didn't think that they were trying to track for anything quote unquote objective.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, I'm either INFP or INTP. I don't really know. And then you looked at my Big Five, right? And
yeah.
you were like, he was like, the general behavioral patterns that are included with what people try to identify as INFP are not associated with that low level of neuroticism or enthusiasm and that high level of something else, orderliness or something.
It was
Um,
maybe it was what conscientiousness, I think. Yeah.
yeah. There's something in there, but it was mainly that. It was mainly the neuroticism and the
Mm-hmm.
enthusiasm, right? You're like, that seems you're like it's possible, right? But it's more improbable.
Yeah.
But you used the big five kind of as that. You used it as the control group,
Mm-hmm.
right? You used that as the control group, and
Yes.
so yeah,
Yes, because that one is technically more valid than MBTI.
it's
So
more objective.
yeah.
But it's more objective. But what objective But what objective means is objective. It's like let's see, it's like what things people call objective are things that are verified by a broader array of subjective experiences, right? It's like
Yeah.
so if I think I see something, if I see something flying over my head, right, and I'm like, is that an illusion? Did I just is that really what I saw, like a flying saucer? But then I look to you, and you're like, whoa, right? And then you call your mother, which happens to be on the other side of town, and she says, "Hey, did you just?" Before you say anything to her, like, "Hey, did you just see?" It's like the more people who have experiences like that,
Mm-hmm.
the more objective the experience becomes to us, right? And that's
Yeah.
what kind of what science does. It collates anecdotes, experiences, recordings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once you get a certain, it's like there's just a strong intuition that we no longer doubt its validity. And then once we get that strong intuition, we call it objective, right? And there are
Yeah.
some, and then there are some things to a Christian that's objective that are subjective to a Muslim or a Hindu, right? Because they
Right.
have different groups that see different things and create different common senses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I'd say that the problem is once it's like a is I think the strength of something like Big Five is that it can get you a very far away with far along the path with that objectivity. But then when you are looking for that specificity, like for a little bit more, it's like, well, just how are they neurotic, right?
Yeah.
Well, just like it's just like what's the distinctive flavor of their enthusiasm?
Mm-hmm.
It's like because I know this guy, I know my brother here, and he's enthusiastic in a certain way, kind of a gestury, kind of a joker way, very quick witted, loves to debate people. But I
Mm-hmm.
got this other sister over here, and she's very happy, and she's super enthusiastic and low neuroticism in a very bubbly, very dynamic, sportsy kind of way. And you're like, and the Big Five isn't capturing that. It's like they both have similar models on the Big Five, but there's still something else going on, right?
Yeah.
But so then it helps you to refine. But now you're getting a little bit more risky, right? Because now the number of people around you who are going to agree precisely on the nature of what you're looking at and how to interpret it is going to diminish drastically. And so now it's less objective, right?
Yeah.
And even your own definitions and understanding of them, because people are fluid. It's all functions all at once,
Yeah.
and it's more like a probability distribution, like the vibe you get off the person.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well.
it gets.
Yeah. Well.
Go ahead.
So I guess two things. One, remember the FI the core emotions of pleasure and pain. This is the most important point. That's what create our FI values, right? So what psychology does is that the way they look at human behavior is that everyone is the same, right? The way the brain functions is the same. The way that loops in our heads is the same. Um, and then from like from that, then they're like, okay, what are the varying, what are the variances, right? Uh, there's a core problem with that. It's a problem of psychology, but I won't go that here. Uh, oh crap! I forgot the second point. Um, but I guess what it leads to is that you technically have two different philosophies. Psychologists are trying to assume that the way people think is the same, and the way we can study people is technically the same. Whereas typologists are trying to figure out how people are different. What makes us
Yeah.
unique, what makes us special. And those different core philosophies is shifting everything. The problem is that typology can only go so far, right? Like typology isn't going to help you with like help you discover depression, for example. So psychology, whenever they're studying the brain, they don't worry about personality because they're going into like in the 10 layers, they're going into the instinctual layer and the atomic layer to try to be like, how is this brain piecing everything together in this way, you know? If they have cancer, no, that could affect a person's personality, right? Uh, why is that? How is that? Take a section of the brain out, and all of a sudden they're a different person. Uh, Typology kind of doesn't tries to pretend that that section doesn't exist. You know, to kind of assume that who you are is who you are, and that you can't really change depending on you can't really change depending on circumstances or traumas or events or choice, right? Uh, so without a core stable variable, typology will never be considered scientific. The closest is Big Five because they have a core variable that doesn't involve human behavior specifically. Uh, but this goes to why my video is as important as it is. Why the the connection between our core emotions, because that's an instinctual process, and how the brain attaches meaning to create FI values. That is a core process that everyone can do. That actually combines typology and science together with philosophy, even. Uh, that's that's why I've been hyping that up so hard because it goes deeper than typology does, and it integrates. It's based off of a scientific premise of how dopamine creates brain structures to, and that's where our beliefs come from. All typology has to do is expand their scope of what beliefs and values mean. So, and then eventually I'll get into the functions more. Because remember, like when I studied the functions, it didn't really take anything away from what I understood. It only helped my knowledge of how I considered brain activity to be even deeper. Um, So it means that I think probably the hardest one that I've been able to pinpoint down was SI. Uh, but even then, I haven't fully got like I think SI exists in the survival level. Um, so that one's fairly deep. Uh, yeah. Whew. I had more, but I just lost it in a. I just lost it. Dang it.
While you were thinking about the SI,
Yeah.
it kind of snatched the thought away and pulled it into the loop.
Yeah, it got folded into loop, and then I was like, wait, what was I thinking about? And then what was I thinking about? And then I lost it. So
Okay, well, while you're thinking about that, I guess a thought I had was is and I noticed Regent came to this kind of observation independently as well, which is that everything really does anchor off FI, right?
mm-hmm.
In an ultimate sense, right? Because I am as like idealism, like analytical idealism, is kind of my preferred level 8 meta lens.
Mm-hmm.
The tool I kind of prefer to rely on most often when I'm bored and I have nothing back to fall back on. I'm just like, yeah, it's all God, right? It's
Yeah.
all FI, it's all experience, right?
Yeah.
It's all God
Mm-hmm.
is no less. It's like the universe itself is no less a a being of experience than we ourselves are as humans. We just grow from that soil, right, in a very
Mm-hmm.
distinctive way that makes us react to that environment kind of in a way that looks autonomous on a short time scale. And so I agree very much with your not only with because I like the way you approach it. It's like it's not just that. It's like okay. It's like because you kind of go underneath like the label. You try to go underneath the label. It's like I'm using the term FI, right? But then you're like, this brings me pleasure. This brings me pain. It's like no matter what value your FI has, it's like blue brings me pleasure,
Yeah.
and it's like an orange and gray bring me pain. It's like less of this, more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Less of this, more of that. SI kind of does the same thing, right? It's like less of the all the functions quite, but they still grow out of that primordial
Yeah.
pleasure plane, and that's under the FI. So I use that term, right? FI, and then like under that is like it's like
Mm-hmm.
the pleasure plane, right? The wanting, the will, right? Um, and so and because of that, and because that is what science gets closer and closer to helping us map, like neuroscience
Mm-hmm.
and left and right brain hemisphere, that guy, and actual psychology is, and because I agree, I do not think that typology. I've changed my mind, because if you had asked me this about a year ago, I'd been like, no, typology just needs to do more of what socionics is doing, right?
Yeah.
But then I was talking to ChemDad, right? And ChemDad was kind of explaining kind of his approach to it, and he was like, he didn't quite go down the layers as far as you did
Mm-hmm.
in your flow of thoughts and feelings video, but his intuition, he was like, no. He was like, this is kind of a mind magic thing where its truthfulness is based on the patterns that you can recognize in yourself and in others, and then the categories that you can give them based upon these personality models. He was like, this is an art. He was like, it's not really a science.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's like there's something to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of help unpack that in the flow of thoughts and feelings, and with the discussion we're having right now, it's like just the thinnest surface layer, right, of just kind of right, and then there's so many different variables that can screw up your interpretation, both of what the people are trying to. It's like so many egregores when you get to the top, the surface most layers of any domain,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like art, right? Like personality models, like color preferences, right? It's like when you start getting up there, I would say no, color preferences are a little lower, but it's like the everything's fluid, right?
Everything's
It's like
fluid.
it moves the slowest at the level of the cosmos, right? And it moves the fastest at the levels of like typology and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but it all flows, right? It's all a dynamic dance, right? And it's like,
Yes.
and when things move as fast as they do in typology, it's like how do you understand the term INTP? It's like how do you understand the term TI? It's like how do you relate to the term FI? It's like how much of the patterns of the archetypes of the people
Mm-hmm.
that you feel other people classify as this type do you represent with, like, and how much of that box do you fit in? It's like oh, I feel like 60% INTP and like 40% INFP and maybe
Mm-hmm.
1%. It's like okay then, right? But it's all kind of it's like every category is artificial. It's like in the real world, in the Tao, there are no categories, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like further down you go, the fewer categories you have to use. The bigger your categories can be, the closer you are to the truth. The further up to the top you come, it's like the more nitpicky you got to be, and the more dogmatic you have to be in order to get enough people to stay on board
Yeah.
with your personality model or your view of science or religion or whatever. And you can never, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then it at those levels you kind of hit the Barnum effect as well, where you kind of, if it sounds good, you believe in it, and uh, and that's another, I guess, a byproduct of the flaws of typology is that the more logically consistent you can make your system sound, the more people are likely to believe in it. Which is why I don't like jump into, like, I need to learn socionics, but that's why I haven't really jumped into it, just because one, it's hard to learn, but two, unless it has a good strong core philosophy, it's not like, just because it sounds logical and the data points interconnect more seamlessly, unless you have a strong core fundamental value to base all of that off of, you're basically just creating your own system. And what makes your system better than Enneagram or MBTI or I mean, we already talked about Big Five. Big Five's pretty good. Astrology, right? I harp on Enneagram the most, uh, just because Enneagram is
Well,
solely based off of archetypes and stereotypes. So
I think the strength and the weaknesses of Enneagram and socionics are precisely on them lying on the two extremes of the amount of information they had available at the given times of their conception, right?
yeah.
It's like socionics is super new, internet,
Hmm.
this that, so they can sweep across and look at far more archetypes, patterns, body types. They can
Hmm.
access more of the science, more of the big five stuff.
Yeah.
And it can help them cross reference more, right?
Hmm.
Which can get them a little bit closer to accurate lived realities, right? Whereas the Enneagram, because it started out with a lot less
Yeah.
observations, it's not as strong of a not as strong, I guess, SETE
Yeah.
database to start from.
Yeah.
It's like we actually saw this. We saw this person. They behaved like this. We categorized it down. It's
Hmm.
like they have a smaller sample size when they got off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that may that is a way you can create not you can create a pseudo core variable, I guess, right? If you have a group large enough to become statistically relevant to where you can safely assume that it is probably a core variable, right?
Yeah,
So, but it's not like it's lowercase t. It's not uppercase t. Right? It's like when a mathematician creates I guess it's the difference between a proof and a theorem, right? A proof is something that's been proven that you can actually verify and you actually use. A theorem is they've mapped it out. They've mapped it out mathematically, but they don't have a way to actually back it up or another thing to help verify it. So
it's internally consistent. The math is clean, but whether or not it maps onto anything remotely usable or accurate in the real world is anyone's guess.
yeah, yeah. So socionics would be like a theorem, not a proof, but a theorem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd agree.
So yeah, and I'm not trying to I'm not trying to hate on the systems too much, because like when it comes to psychology, what else is there to base on experience and behavior, right? Um, right. There's
Well, I think they do need to kind of be dunked on, right? Because what you can do is make them more aware
yeah,
of their biases
yeah,
and the trade offs,
that's true.
biases and the trade offs. You're like, okay, because sometimes they think they've got the whole enchilada. Like we've got it all figured out. The map is the territory. Like we got, and it's like, eh, have you considered?
Mm-hmm.
And then they can check for the barn, and they can, and for what, and sometimes they can slow them down. Sometimes they can slow down efficiency. Sometimes, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but if you get to the Dunning Kruger Valley, it's like out on the other side. It's like that can actually amplify the quality of your process, and it's like that self awareness, and you never know what kind of transformations that self awareness can make on any system, right? Because
Yeah.
just like you never know what kind of changes more knowledge can make in your own life. It's like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you learn facts that change your behavior, and I think that's the importance of dunking on them is being like, hey, it's like be aware. It's like I'm not telling you to fix. I'm not telling you to do or not do. I'm just telling you that if you do this, you get this and
Yeah.
this and this and this. And then once they know that, they'll be like, do I want that? Like, yes or no, right? More options.
I think when it comes to like behavior and psychology, more options isn't always a good thing. So,
No, it's not always a good thing.
yeah, yeah. Well, you can only see yourself from so many perspectives before you have too much information, right? So,
Going back to the nihilistic side of the everything everywhere all at once lady,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
or the everything bagel.
yeah. So at some point you have to declare an identity and be like, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I want. Um, uh, just I don't know, because we live in a world, we live in society. Life goes on either way. So, uh, which is why like it's also okay that like the systems are being used and made. Like, well, yeah, I get, I guess, annoyed that there is no core variable. One, I get why there isn't a core variable to base off of. Uh, but I guess it's just like it's kind of like whenever it's like when Christianity split off. You know, Martin Luther. There's like one true church of Christianity, and then all
Yes.
of a sudden there's just millions of branches. If you don't have like a core variable that everyone can relate to, everyone can base off of, everyone can understand, then you can create any system that you want if you like. It's just a church of typology, right? How many churches of typology are we going to create?
Yeah.
And so while, and that's another weird thing. So like while my system is technically a new system, I'm not doing it based off of like typology reasons. I'm just trying to showcase how like the in considering the flow of thoughts and the flow of thoughts and feelings of everything, the functions didn't go away. They just helped me understand it clearer. And these are the issues that other systems have because they don't see how the brain and the flow of thoughts and feelings actually work together. So, and I think the reason why I look at it so differently is because I studied behavioral science first, which tries to treat everyone as being the same, not different. So that was kind of like my first rodeo into it. So,
I think that's the safer approach, though, is to always keep in the back of your mind that we are more alike than different because we are humans, right?
yeah,
And not something else.
yeah,
So if
yeah.
you start with that, that can be a very powerful bias check.
Mm hmm. Mm hmm. Mm hmm. So, and I guess another thing, because I can keep going, I guess, once you get me talking, uh, is that like, I'm not fully against MBTI either. So the way I look at it is that like I suppose that there's like you have targets on the ground and you jump off a plane and you hit where you're going to hit, you know, based on the direction you're falling. I kind of look at this as like the political compass, right? The way like you don't choose, like you can choose which party you're part of, but the way they declare the way test define what party you're part of is based on what you believe, right? So to me, that's kind of like similar to typology. Is that like I'm not against it because it's a classification system, right? Labels are inevitable. Like no matter what you do, you're going to fall into a category or a group with similar
Yes.
traits and behaviors like someone else, right? Uh, while Big Five is the most valid, MBTI is the easiest to use. So it because of that, it has use, right? It's popular for a reason. So and it does a decent job at getting people started into that self awareness track. So um and like while it doesn't have a not while everything about it isn't right, it's not completely wrong either, right? Like thinking and feeling, if you're a thinker, you're going to be a thinker, right? If you're a feeler, you're going to be a feeler. It's just those awkward middle types because of trauma and choice that can really mess it up. But yeah.
And it's like going back to that pain and pleasure duality, dichotomy that you, duality, because they work together,
Mm-hmm.
that you denoted at the start, is that it's like there can be sort of, as you're a child, kind of a reaffirming bias. It's like you do one thing, like you do a little bit more of the feeling, or you do a little bit more of the thinking, or you do a little bit more of the sensing, or you do, because like children, it's, you know, it can be really hard, right? Like you can notice like something like maybe like extroversion or introversion, kind
Mm-hmm.
of more or less out of the gate,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like after that, It can be quite difficult to map them. And it's like eventually they start doing things and exploring and finding out, oh, I like thinking more than doing.
Mm-hmm.
I like um I like thinking more than doing, and it's like that can be, and then if you get like a positive pleasure point out of that, right? You get 2 positive pleasure points and only half a pleasure point for doing something or building something with your hands, right? And then you do that more and you do that more, and it kind of crystallizes into what we call more colloquially an ego, right? Not the primordial ego that you denoted in your, but kind of the way a lot of people in other domains might use it, right? Like it starts crystallizing into like a self narrative. I like thinking. I like reading. I like imagining things. You know, I like drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I like whatever, and it pulls you a little further away from other pleasure points. And it's like, even though everything is active all at once, as you begin more consciously biasing certain slices in certain orders, and assuming, using Carl Jung's terms, assuming those are inversions of those other ways of being, right? And you get more pleasure from using one over the other, right? And you kind of deprioritize the conscious use of it, except for in certain situations, right? Then it's like that can, if you make enough boxes, if you make enough categories, like you were saying, if you make enough categories for like different behavior types and motivations, and you do it long enough, eventually you can kind of catch all the many of the most likely ways we are able to identify archetypes of humans before you end up with so many archetypes that the categorization, the stereotypes become meaningless, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but at the same time, it's like as a person grows and develops and changes and has more life experiences, they can find more pleasure in different things and kind of flow and move. And it's like, well, now it's like that sense of ego is like more dynamic, right? Yeah. It's going back to what we were saying before. It's like the bottom moves slowly, but the top moves quickly, right? And it's like you can they seem more like a hybrid. You can no longer easily put them in a category the way you used to before, and now you've got to come up with, you use one model and then maybe an Enneagram type to catch another angle, and then maybe like the MBTI with the socionics to catch another, and then Big Five to catch another. It's like, here we go. But by the time you're done with that, it's like there could be like millions of different combinations, and you've almost now just got an individual, right?
Yeah. How many vantage points do you need, I guess? But another thing that you mentioned ego and ego development theory. One of the reasons that was so powerful for me is that it actually filled a lot of the gaps with typology as well. Because the higher you go in awareness, the better you understand your own biases, right? The more developed your ego is, right? The less stereotypical you fall into your type, right? So the lower the level, the more caricature you have. The higher the level, the more you can kind of blend between the two, and the more stable you are as an individual. So, which was actually kind of fascinating to that was actually part of the reason why I went into ego development theory and the flow of thoughts and feelings, because it didn't take anything away. It answered a lot of the questions, and it helped fill out a lot of those gaps. So yeah, it made it more whole and inclusive.
So it plugged some of those question marks.
Plugged some of those question marks. So instead of having a larger model, it was like, oh, if we could just rely on a different model.
Yeah.
And get a more wholesome conclusion. So.
Given the inherent trade-offs, but given the inherent trade-offs of every model, I'm beginning to see the importance of cross-modal analysis, right? Just using entirely different frameworks to map on entirely different aspects, or even just to cross-reference or to cross-check your biases,
Mm-hmm.
warps, and assumptions,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or
But
plug holes, like you said.
what's funny is that even with all of this, like the color theory, I still haven't been able to integrate it well. It's still kind of a mystery for me. Um,
Okay,
Cause like
so
again, it's based off of our emotions, right? And our emotions can be squishy. But I guess the core reason is why 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 do we choose our favorite colors, right? We like what we like, but why do we like what we like? That's the question. Why are things our favorites? And the core reason of that is because, well, one is better and one is not. And so it kind of goes down into the atomic layer at that level.
yeah,
And um, I'm thinking my next video, or maybe not my next one, but the next after, I'm probably going to talk about the atomic level and I'm going to phrase it. I'm going to call it the problem of psychology, and it'll be the atomic level. Uh, because at that level things get weird. Um,
you could title it the problem of being in psychology, because it is a problem from the human perspective. It is a problem of psychology. From a cosmic level, it's just a problem of everything, right? Like why does gravity work the way it does? Why does lightning work the way it does? Why do I like blue and you like red? Why? And it's like all of those hit that atomic you just talked about, and
yeah,
it just grounds, as
yeah,
far as we know, completely out.
yeah. Well, and at that level, it's like, what's the difference between nature and nurture, right?
Mm.
Astrology, funny enough, actually exists at the atomic level. So
Yeah,
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 but,
yeah.
well, like you know, so they base their system off of the stars and planets and the moon, right? Like when the Earth goes around the sun, there's slightly different gravitational pulls. The seasons are different. You know, the moon has changes the tides. We're 70% water. Like I can make a probable guess that gravity and where we're placed in the universe in relation to the sun and the moon probably has an effect somewhere. But because it's happening before creation, how can I separate the nature versus nurture, right? There's no way for me to. And so because I can't separate it, I can't really get into it. So, and same with the Emmanuel's thing when it comes to, like, how our
Yeah.
eye receptors pick up different wavelengths of colors, and that could potentially change uh, our relation to how we like it and why we like it. And it's like, yeah, that's nice, but how do I separate it, right? That goes deeper than emotions. That goes deeper than thoughts. That goes and it starts touching on cosmic, right? Um, how it's
There's
all the
nowhere
stuff
else to go.
beforehand, right? How do you track or measure that, right?
No, the only thing you can do at that point is that is to create a theorem. It's to create a framework, a narrative, a story that seems most plausible based on human intuitions and assumptions, right? And it's like what do they call it? The inference to the best explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Like based on everything we know right now and the data we have right now and our intuitions, like this is the story, this is the connecting dots, the TI loop, like the TI framework that makes the most. Here are the connection of symbols that come together most cleanly based upon our data
Yeah,
right now to us based on these assumptions.
yeah,
And that's, I mean, that's kind of it, you know?
yeah, and that's kind of what astrology is. So,
Yeah, yeah, it is.
which
Yeah.
which is yeah. Um,
Humanity's first attempt at a personality model.
we'll we'll see how far we go. Um, but yeah, And then another thing as well is that psychology can change, right?
Say again.
Because the like that core motivator, the fi the of attaching meaning to meaning through the ego, that probably most likely won't change. But there are a lot of variables in psychology that change. How humans handle trauma has changed in the past, like even 100 years, right? So our relationship to trauma has changed. Uh, and so if our relationship to trauma is changing now, then like how do we it's hard to create a base system when even the fundamental concepts of how humans behave can also change as well. So like I saw a thing that said that I guess your brain stops becoming starts fully thinking that it's adult until like when it's 33 roughly in its 30s, when before it was like in its 20s. And I'm just like,
25.
yeah, and I'm just like, is that an incorrect, is that because the scientists who studied were incorrect, or is that because the way that humans have changed to society now in our relationship to how we're supposed to live, is that how that's changed, right? And then back in the day, like all of the founding fathers were basically in their 20s, right? Their early
Yeah.
20s. Some of them were in their teens too. Um, so it's just I don't know. It's very these are some of the things I have in the back burner, right? So, and it's not something you can fully just kind of have to live with, right?
Yeah.
Like you can
I
only do the
mean,
best that you can. So,
I mean, even Avery was talking about how he thinks that the laws of nature change just super slowly, right? And that would make sense to my understanding of what nature is. That nature is an endogenous quote unquote being,
yeah.
which means if it is a being, then if it is a living God, so to speak, then that means that even its personality, its fi, its motivations, its desires, just like humans, like our change is just a faster manifestation of like cosmos. And it's like as far as we know, the only things that cannot change are, and this is, I guess, why TI can be so, I guess, comforting in its own weird way, is that even though distinctions are arbitrary and meaningless,
Mm-hmm.
in the cosmic sense, is this is why I say life is autistic and death is schizo. It's like every time you're embodied in a living organism and you're compelled to use symbols to navigate your environment, like that is the user interface that we are given, is symbols, right?
Mm-hmm.
For our bodies and our minds to use. It's like two will never be one. It's like two oranges will never be one orange, so long as the word orange and one and two have any meaning, right? So long as
Yeah.
those symbols, right? It's like the logic, the math. It's like the TI, like that framework can never. It's like, well, that will never change, right? It's like
Yeah.
because for one, like, but aside from that, everything else in the schizo world, everything else is up for grabs. Maybe the laws of nature, the laws
Yeah.
of gravity, for all we know, are like, it's like all you can do is experience the world, right? Record it, tell people,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is what I experienced. This is my interpretation of my experience.
Yeah.
You collate that, and then that just keeps transforming, right? That just keeps changing,
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like,
I guess experience is truth, right?
yeah,
So, like this conversation.
yeah.
Mm. So yeah, that's all the stuff that's been on my mind when it comes to typology.
That's a lot on your mind. I'm definitely looking forward to the videos on it.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the next two videos on the flow of thoughts and feelings down the stack.
Yeah.
So, and then after that I might go a little deeper into the functions. So, and where
What's
they are at. So,
what's your next color combo?
I'm thinking about doing white and yellow.
White and
Uh,
yellow. Ooh.
yeah, just because I don't talk enough about the color white, and I've never done that combination really before,
No,
and it's weird. Uh,
it's mentioned in this next chapter in white and yellow.
and this one that we just read. Did I miss
Yeah,
that?
white and yellow, white and yellow, and white and gold.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep. Because yellow is often used as like a substitute for gold if you can't make
Yep.
gold. Yeah, that makes sense. I vaguely remember that. Yeah. So white and yellow, and then I don't know, whatever I feel like. If somebody has an idea, they can pitch it to me. So
All right.
uh, I might do pink and green after that, maybe, or
Mm, that's a tricky one.
that's another weird one. Red and brown would be fun. That'd be very country. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
very.
those.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Distinct
very
Bama,
country.
redneck. Yeah, red and brown. So those are the common associations. But how did you like the last red and black one?
I liked it.
You liked it?
I liked it quite a bit. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Thought it was very good, very intuitive. It makes sense that that would have been the one that kind of anchored your intuitions onto something deeper because of how prevalent it is, like how much globally the world just agreed is like, yep, this is the color for villains and narcissists. Yep, this is the color we're using, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just something. It's like, well, what is that intuition that we've all latched down to? It's like, well, if we have intuitions about these colors and these symbols, stands to reason that maybe there's something else underneath all of this to dig into. So it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense that that was your on ramp, right? And then you having a personal lived experience with the emotions in those two colors, being able to see them in yourself, seeing that portrayed in media, and then being like, like where else should I look for more of this?
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
so
Precisely. That was how that worked. So I was like, well, "Am I
yeah,
a
it's pretty
bad
cool.
guy?" No, that wasn't it. But yeah, I noticed that sense of control and that sense of power by trying to look tough. So what's funny is I was an INFP, so I tried to act cool and tough, but looking back, it didn't work really well. But I tried.
Yeah,
I've always been a softy by nature. What could I say?
yeah, yeah.
Part of the reason why I joined football. So, because I wanted to be cool and tough and strong and manly.
Well, you've explored it, found out how much of that was worth keeping, how much of that was worth getting rid of. And you're like, okay,
It's weird. I actually kind of miss it in a weird way. Because, I don't know. That,
miss that fire, that drive,
yeah,
the simplicity, kind of straightforward, just kind of.
yeah, the determination and the discipline. Oh, yeah. The ability to kind of make
Locked in.
things happen, I guess. So, I lost 60 pounds while I was doing it. So, I think I've told you the story before, just how crazy my workouts were.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So, good times.
Like 5 hours a day.
There was a point I hit 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, and they weren't like light workouts. They were like sweat bullets. Literally, at the end of it, my entire shirt was drenched. So, like, I took two
That's
aerobic classes back to back.
yeah. I mean, that's intense
Yeah.
for an INFP. Someone I guess in spirit of the conversation we've had before, like it's for someone with INFP operating preferences, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got filled with that determination. Honestly, like back in the day, whenever Naruto was would be like, I want to be the Hokage. I will become the Hokage. I was inspired by that, inspired by the idea of like you can be whatever you want to be if you just push yourself hard enough. So
Hmm.
I actually believed that. So that's what I did. That's that's where the INFP ness came in. So
The NEFI, I can have any identity, any value set, any identity.
yeah, I can yeah, I can be whatever I want to be basically if I
I
just
think
set myself
Kenja
to it.
was right. I think level 6 is a good like home place for the average. And I know you've already said this before you came out with that model,
Mm-hmm.
but like level 6 is a good home base for ENFPs and INFPs. It's just like I could be anything. I could value anything. Anybody could value anything. Anybody could be anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very level 6 happy place. So
No,
it's
no,
also part of
no,
the reason why
no.
like INFPs and ENFPs tend to become like ultra spiritual. Not so much like INFJs, if you notice. Like INFJs tend to be like, I guess Ninja is a very good example of an INFJ. They'll like study, they'll create a framework, they'll almost becoming pastors. INFPs kind of be like, fairyland and witches, and
Mm-hmm.
they could kind of create mystical worlds. So become part of mystical worlds. So
It's more the dichotomy between the spiritual and the religious, and then the kind of the one best way or true way or optimal way, and then just kind of a more expansive whatever works for you and whatever works for me
yeah,
kind of spirituality.
yeah.
And one's more narrow, one tries to optimize, and then one's a little bit more broad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Makes sense. That's that. There you go. Catching it. So
Yeah. Very few INFJs, even at higher levels of awareness, can maintain a healthy. No. What am I trying to say? I'm doing the TI thing. I'm doing the TI thing without enough TESE. Okay. So I know a couple of INFJs.
mm-hmm.
My pastor, right? Um, Ninja, Boiled, and then let's see, Jesus, arguably Muhammad, Martin Luther King,
Mm-hmm.
Adolf Hitler was either INFJ or ENFJ, one of the two. I think he was E, in my opinion. But there's a certain okay. Even with the most spiritually open INFJs, there's still to them, and I think every human has it in a certain sense. It's just not as many humans, especially at higher levels, hold on to it quite as tightly or struggle with it the same way they do.
mm-hmm.
It's like this kind of deep inner conviction that this is the way that matters most, right? And they can kind of intellectually understand that it matters most to them, but they still it's like they have a psychological need or disposition to make sure it also matters most to you, to proselytize, right?
Yeah.
It's just like part of who they are. I was like to just need to like proselytize, like bring people under their tent to like move the tribe forward with this value, with this spiritual insight that they have. Um, and I don't know how healthy even even a very self-aware INFJ. I don't know how healthy they can really be trying to maintain a spiritual but not religious, all paths are equal attitude, right?
Yeah.
Because at some level, no human truly believes that all paths are quote unquote equal. It's like intellectually we can, like, but if we truly felt that, in our bodies,
Yeah.
we would follow all paths. It's like the fact that I still identify primarily as, it's like the fact that if somebody really pins us and we really have to give an answer, I might say, I'm kind of a Christian mystic, and you're like, I'm kind of a Mormon mystic, right?
Yeah.
It's like, even though we don't hold on tightly to those identities or those labels, it's like the fact that we do that, right, already gives like a slight, us kind of putting our thumb on the scales, being a little bit like, like if the entire world was more like me, I wouldn't mind. I'm not asking them to, but I wouldn't mind if they were
Yeah.
all more like me, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, for the INFJ, for them to not put that thumb on the scales a little harder, even though they intellectually just like us, they know like what we know.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me like it might not be a really healthy place for them. Is my current very tentative observation. It's like, I don't care if you're a level 9 or 10 INFJ. Level 9 INFJ is like, once you get to level 10, you need to go back to preaching and making a cult,
Yeah.
because that's just what you do. And
Yeah.
if you don't, you're going to be sad.
Well,
Go make a cult.
I think the clearest way to think about it is what does just a function of NI like to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
if
like
that,
a. Go ahead.
yeah. So and that this is kind of how I think in function. It's that even though I don't have like the entire model, I'm able to kind of get an idea of it. So what the function NI tries to do is that it's taking all the information and trying to aggregate it down into a singular concept or idea or a data point even. Uh, so NI users they tend to have a really good idea of like what their purpose is in life, right? And that usually involves being like, well, I'm me, you're you, therefore I'm right and you're wrong, right? So NI is very innately tries to be like, what is the answer? And that is also going to coincide with, well, I have the answer, therefore I'm right. So, and then that will translate to, if I'm right, the implication is well, if I'm right, then you have to be wrong. So that's kind of how that works.
Especially when you combine it with TI Child, right?
Yeah, especially when you combine it with TI Child. So, and just in some of the observations, getting an NI to level 9 is incredibly difficult because the jump from level 8 to level 9 requires another collapse, right?
Mm.
And level 8 to level 9 is the collapse of thought. So, whatever framework they've built up, whatever concept of themselves they've built up, in order for them to get to level 9, they have to collapse that. And if they're thinking, I'm right, well, that entire philosophy also has to break. So that's that's hard. It's hard to break open NI. So especially when at level 8 you've become more holistic and more just like everything is more complete with the amount of possibilities you're able to maintain, and also you understand yourself really well. So, in order for you to break open the concept of like you no longer understand yourself again, that's tough. So, it's partially why I couldn't really like when I did Ninja's dream analysis. I'm not sure if you
I
read that.
have it. I still have the tab open, and I haven't read it.
Yeah. Uh uh I usually I kind of mentioned when she has some level 9 moments, you know. Uh and I even said that like those moments were like when you were trying to be everything is everything. But ironically, the just from what I see, the thing that keeps her from entering level 9 is actually her belief in Jesus. Uh,
Mm.
so she's attached her identity to that concept so much that um, she can't be everything is everything, I guess. So
And here's the cool thing, though, going back to your framework of level 10, is that level 10, you can come back to Jesus, right? You can just be like, this is who I am.
yeah,
I like Jesus.
yeah,
F you, right?
yeah.
But it's like, but you have to let it fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
To pick it back up again in a more adaptive way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even then, you don't get to choose necessarily. It's like your FI gets to choose, and like your narrative of yourself and your actual FI might not be compatible. So it's like you might drop him and never pick him back up again. That's scary.
Yeah.
It's like, but you could if it's really you, you know.
Yeah. 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 So if and also like some of her story as well that she mentioned, like it makes sense why she's so onto it as well. But and I don't want to. I guess another thing to remember as well is that like all the levels have strengths and weaknesses. None is inherently better than the other. So they all have their own problems if not done well. So, but that's just my observations. I don't want to assume or say too much. Or it was just I'm assuming that from that interaction, I'm assuming that a lot of INFJs would have that similar issue at level 8. Not maybe not necessarily around Jesus Christ per se, but at level 8, a lot of who they are gets attached. A lot of the symbolism and the philosophy gets attached to who they are as their person and their whole purpose in life, and then that has to break, and that's really hard to do when you already feel whole and complete. So
Especially if what Kid just said was true, and that's kind of a natural home. It's like I think there's a plus and minus to those to home locations, and the plus is you can get there easier. The
mm-hmm.
minus is it can trap you longer, if
Mm-hmm.
not forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like because a long time ago, maybe a year ago, I told you I noticed that most INTPs get stuck at level 5.
Yeah.
They get there super young, like 13, 14, like their level 5 is like they get out of 3, get out of 4, they stick around 5, but then they get stuck there forever.
Yeah.
Right, and then the few who move past it, oftentimes, like I did, they skirt around level 6 in a weird way. They orient themselves. They skirt around level 6 with their mind, but not their heart.
Yeah.
Right? It's like intellectually, blah 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 blah, blah, but emotionally, they're still kind of like over there level. But they can say and they can mimic all the
Mm-hmm.
level 6 vocabulary, in their heart, and their FI is so far away in the back that they think it doesn't matter. I'm just being objective. I'm just,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so and so if like the INFJ's home base is one of their home bases is that level 8 space, then that means it'll be easier for them than many other types, which might be why there are so many level 8s that I know, INFJs in the LT space. They can get there more easily than other types,
Mm-hmm.
which is the trade-off at the expense of having a harder time than it's like, so an INTP might be less likely to make it to level 8, but it
Yeah.
might be easier for them to move from there to level 9. Whereas the INFJ has a better chance of getting to level 8 in the first place,
Yeah.
as opposed to level 5, where the INTP is likely to get stuck. But then it's like getting to level 9 is going to be a nightmarish fight.
Yeah. That's their wall. That's their wall.
Like my nightmarish fight was 7 and 8. Like that was brutal,
Yeah.
right? Like that was an absolute knockout, drag down fight, right? And so for them, it might feel the same way to get from 8 to 9.
Yeah.
For me, 8 to 9, from 8 to what I associate Ken Wilber's levels as being a 9 was super smooth. It was like
Yeah.
it was just a few months.
Well,
But from
yeah.
that 7 to 8, that was horrible.
Yeah. Well, once you were able to intellectualize that your emotions were also important, you're just like, okay, logically, I need to care about this. And so at that point, it was just a smooth transition. So, but to understand that, you have to kind of understand the level 6. And then,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah.
um, yeah. I think I made a Google document about that. I'm not sure if anyone's read it, though. It's been a while.
You
Yeah.
did, and I did read it.
Yeah.
I might even still have it in my drive somewhere.
Yeah. It was fun theorizing it. I don't think anything is super set in stone in there, but those are just my main intuitions from it. So
You did write that down. I remember reading
yeah,
it.
like ISTPs like to be in level. Uh, they hard stop at level 5. But they do well in level 3. Um,
Yeah. My
ISTJs,
my brother, IST brother's level 4.
yeah,
He's just chilling there.
yeah. So doesn't need to like it's kind of a happy place. I think level
Yeah.
4 is a little bit more. Uh, be a little bit of discontentedness with level 4 because it's the sense of community, right? So
Yep.
you kind of have you feel obligated to help others because it's the right thing to do
Yes.
because other people want it.
That's where he's at.
Yeah.
Yep.
So some people are happy with that obligation. ISFJs would love level 4. ESFJs would love level 4. Um, INTJs. I personally think INTJs have they have the smoothest route to level 9. Um, just because of how their function is stacked. So I think they get the stopping point at level 8, similar to INFJs, but that stopping point isn't as terrible. And I also think they can get caught up at um, level 5 pretty bad, because that's kind of when they get into conspiracy theories and such. Um, but just the way that their functions are, so they have the NI and then they have the TE. But what breaks that is like that FI, and the FI can definitely go in and be like, I feel, this is how I feel. I want to be right. But because the FI critic is always there, it's really easy. It's a lot easier for them to get their philosophies to kind of get broken. So
They don't get stuck too hard in a framework. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Them
yeah,
naturally being critical of everything, including their own frameworks.
yeah, yeah. So again, and raising levels is hard as it is. It's just INTJs, just how their functions are stacked, it would have the smoothest route. So I guess a way to look at it is that every type has like if they have a wall that they hit, right, and that wall has a health bar of like 10 health points, right. The INFJ wall, they hit that and all of a sudden they're doing like one thing of damage to it every time. Uh, but an INTJ, instead of doing just one damage, they're doing like 1.2 damage every time at that point. So it's just at every wall, the INTJ can just do a little a little more damage than what the hard wall that each type has at that point. So
In other words, there's no wall from your understanding of them and the models. It's like there's no wall that they are naturally particularly a bad matchup against.
yeah, yeah. Like some walls are harder than others for their particular, but in comparison to like the other types' hardest walls, the INTJ will have an easier time with the other types' hardest walls. So does that make sense?
It does. I'm just thinking about. I'm scrolling through all the ENTJs I know in my head on LC and in other spaces, or potential INTJs. And and there are a doggone lot of them at level 7. Just I'm thinking random places I've been, like on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
People I noticed I liked to listen to, and I started running out of people I liked listening to.
Yeah.
Looking back, most of them tended to be level 7 or 8 now. Um, One of them, I think Bernardo Castro. I'm not sure if he's. I'm not even 100% positive he's a very well integrated INTJ or a very well integrated INTP. He's one of those two types. I'm having a hard time typing him.
Yeah.
I think he's INTJ, level 8 guy. Then Basecamp, Simon and Simone. That's an INTJ INTP couple. They're both level 7. So the man that's an INTJ, he's level 7. Um, so that's potentially 2 right there. We've got our own server. We got Aeolian, right? We got Odolev. We got Jan. I think AJ is INTJ. I don't know if I think Draco's introverted, so I think he's INTJ.
Yeah.
Even though he came up with ENTJ one time, but he comes more across as an introvert, so I think he's INTJ. Yeah, he's level 9. Odolev, definitely level 9.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Jen, I don't know. She was pretty high. Minimally level 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was an INTJ girl I ran into onto a typology server I was in previously. She was younger than I was, but she was level 6, but she has level 7 potential. Like I can see it. Like I can see like she works with ideas. Like sometimes she can kind of like spike a little bit out into like a level, and then she gets kind of get caught in like her political party. Right now, her political party, like the politics, like the value, she's still kind of. Her FI has caught her. FE trickster has got her. She's still. It's like she's still kind of blind as to the values that she's appropriated from her tribe.
Yeah.
Without realizing it, and so she's still kind of stuck in a level 6 thingy. But I can see her. The months I've been watching, I can see her kind of poking at it a little bit. So I think at some time she's gonna break out, hit level 7.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating.
Okay.
Fascinating.
Okay. I'll keep my eyes. My sister. She's level 7.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
So maybe
INTJ sister.
Maybe their resting place is level 7. So, but
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing now. Because now I have to do a whole like analysis, right? So yes, I'm seeing a lot of them at level 7, but of course there's going to be more at level 7 than there are at level 9. How many of them? Like, and the more of them who even get to level 7 increases the probability that you're going to get to level 9.
Yeah.
Right, but then there are a few of them in the population at large anyway. So how can we? So it's not merely a numbers game. It's like we have 14% of the world's population is an ISTJ. It's like 2 to 3% of the world's population is an I. It's like so. So now I've got to. It's like so with so few of them being in the general population at large, and me already having so many to choose from around the level 7 and even the level 8 to 9 space. It's like that is potentially a point in favor of your intuition, or it could just be confirmation bias because I'm thinking about them right now,
right.
specifically. But if I was doing the same thing for another type, I could do the same thing. Because right now I'm thinking, I'm like, well, yeah. So exercise for another day. Let that sit. Let that sit in the back of my mind.
Okay.
Marinate.
Fascinating. Okay. Yeah. That got me thinking that I also eventually want to describe the levels in my way on my channel, and that'll be in the flow of thoughts and feelings as well, because that will help explain what I'm looking for when I'm trying to assess levels, I guess. So, because it gets weird, man. It gets complicated. The best example I have is when Double On came into the server. And
that was a fascinating little creature.
Yeah. And we couldn't figure out what level he was because of the way he was. But he said that he had a good relationship with his own emotions. but which is a uncommon for an INTP, right? So that kind of put him at level 7, level 8 instantly. But just some of the interactions that he had, um, like his FE was kind of low, right? So that
Yeah.
thinking on it now is probably level 7, just because of the lack of understanding with a lack of full understanding of how deep your thought process could go. For for example, if there was a conclusion that he made that didn't exist in his framework, instead of declaring it yes or no, he declared it null or as non-existent.
I did the same thing at level 7 all the time.
Yeah, yeah, and or like one thing as well as like level 7 where you are able to separate your thoughts and emotions. But level 8 goes a little farther where he's like, okay, you can separate them, but then you also recognize that you can't truly separate them. There are deeper thoughts and emotions that go deeper than the first separation. So, like, you can only separate them up to a point, right? There are deeper emotions that are creating that separation in the first place. Um, so every value point that you have is going to have a layer of bias within it somewhere. So
And he thought he was so separated, he was perfectly unbiased, perfectly objective, so
yeah,
to speak, right?
yeah,
And it's like and the feeling that feeling is that does not compute, right? It's like what you're saying. It's the TI thing. It's like the TI is symbols, so like the symbolic incoherence.
mm-hmm.
It's like an AI program. If you're not in touch enough with your emotions or other people's emotions, what happens is it's like you see. I did this with free will, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I see people talking about free will, and I look at the symbols. I go symbol, 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 and I look at another framework for free will, and I go symbol, symbol. I'm like, that does not compute. I'm like, that does not compute. That does not compute. Does not compute. Null. Null. Right off script.
Yeah,
And then I do that with different frameworks, different arguments, different whatevers. I'd watch the symbols, and then I'd immediately conclude. But then once I become more aware of my own emotions, I'm like, oh, they're not trying to make quote. They're not. This isn't a program I need to analyze. This is an emotional experience to have to a perception of the world and the way they orient themselves in
yeah,
it in relation to what they interpret as autonomy. I'm like this, and I'm trying to convert that into all. I'm trying to convert all that SI FI experience. I'm trying to convert all of that through a TI framework and bleed it through. I'm like,
mm.
this is where the debate is coming down. It's
Yeah,
not. It's not logic versus logical system. And like, even though it's being framed that way, I'm seeing that way because that's why I lead. I lead with TI, and so I'm
yeah,
TIing this to death. I'm like, it's something right underneath it. And so I'd do that to all kinds of things. I'd be like, symbolic incoherence, null. Next, null, right? Null doesn't exist. I'd say the way I would say it. The way I would say it is that one of my favorite quotes up until about a year ago was, "This is not right. This is not wrong. This doesn't even rise to the dignity of being an error." Right? That is such a TI thing to say. This does not even rise to the dignity of being an error. Because what it means is, that does not compute.
yeah.
Like program error, syntax error is what they say in programming. Like when you line up all those
Mm-hmm.
lines of programming
Mm-hmm.
and your program can't run, they say syntax error, right? Because this means that you formulated it incorrectly, which means you're actually saying nothing. There's no content. There's no
Yeah,
semantic content to your message, right? And so if somebody would make an argument, blah 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 blah. I'd be like, that does not even rise to the. It's like symbolically TI, right? There's no pre, right? And so yeah, it took a while to get through.
to get through
So,
it
but
too.
that is what he was doing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and that is what I did when I was level 7 and level 5.
man. Always fascinating to learn a little more about you. So
Yeah.
I think I think part of what's fascinating is that I see who you are now, and I just you telling me stories about who you were back then and how you used to think that way. It's like it's just very fascinating. I guess I love it. So I
Well,
get,
thank you.
yeah, I think it's this it's nice to hear you resonating with your FI more. So
Feels a lot better. Don't feel so constipated anymore. So cry
uh,
a whole lot more, but win some, you lose some.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, yeah. Anyway, one day, I'll get to that, but it takes time. So, and money and resources. So we'll see. We'll see. Ego
One
development
day.
theory. Oh, but man, it can get kind of weird too how I analyze it because I can even analyze how people say things, right? Just the way they construct sentences, and I'll be like, they constructed it this way, so I can kind of see how their thought process is working. If they had constructed it a different way, their thought
Mm-hmm.
process would have been a different way. Therefore, they're probably this way, and therefore they're probably this conclusion. So I read too deep into things all the time. So I kind of try not to say anything because there's always a potential that I'm wrong. So because I've been wrong many a time because I can't see everything, right? I can't predict every variable. So I can only
Is it too is it too much of a social and cognitive price to say something, get feedback, and refine those intuitions?
there there's some there's some like if so it's I've read a story once. I guess I'll start off with this where this guy, the way um, he was raised by an abusive dad, and whenever his dad came home from work, whether he got beat or not was determined by whether he was able to guess if his dad wanted beer or not, and his dad wouldn't say anything. So he intuitively was able to pick up lying incredibly well. And one of the lessons I learned from that story is that he says, "Yeah, I can tell when my friends are lying to me. I just don't say anything because if I said everything, I wouldn't have any friends." Um, so there is a point where I try to be careful in what I say and when I say it. Not necessarily because like I'm scared. There's a little bit, but it's like one, it's not right to assume when I don't have all the knowledge. But two, some of the lessons that the people need to learn, they need to learn on their own with closer friends, with closer peers, um, and with somebody who can help them relate to it better than I can. Because I'm like again, I'm good at taking all this information and like hitting the core fundamental point really quickly, but I can't say the whole paragraph of why and when and how. People get bored. It gets lost in the context. How sugary do I need to put it? Um, like when I say just do what you want, you know, they're not. It sounds like a crazy philosophy, but you know, like I'm not going
Hey,
to
what's up, guys?
unpack the entire 2-page dissertation on
Am I
why
um am I
You're
like
coming.
echoing?
you are.
You are echoing, but we can't hear you.
Oh, what?
We can
I'm
hear you clearly, but yeah, you do have an echo.
Yeah,
Oh shoot. Okay.
and we are recording right now. Just letting you be aware. So
Oh, sorry.
that's fine. You like if you want to be included, that's it's up to you. But we're just giving you the option. That's all.
I think that's better.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's a sign. There's I guess a science and art to what I tell people and when and how. So kind of like when I mentioned to you liquid, like hope doesn't have to make sense, right? So that is what I felt you needed to hear at that time to combat all the entirety of all the processing that you were trying to do at that time. So that was like out of all the systems I could have thought of, what you were talking to me about, I was like, hope doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be
Mhm.
logical, you know. So I didn't know what was going on with what you were doing. I didn't see all of that, but with how you were processing information as an INTP, I was like, that where you're at now, that's the understanding that you need to try to break into the next level, basically. So,
And so sometimes you're concerned that if you merely used these occasions to sharpen the accuracy of your intuitions, you could actually just end up doing more harm than good for the people you would have to use as test subjects to get to that point.
mm-hmm.
And you kind of let your predictions play out naturally, and then just get feedback from that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's been sometimes I've stepped out a little bit. I did that with Double On. Um, I I think I said what I needed to say, but he didn't choose to change on the advice that I gave him. Um, so it was kind of the same thing. I just said short replies. Um, yeah. So I do that quite a lot, I guess, and it's because I've learned that like the more you say, the less people listen. So saying a lot doesn't actually give you the results that you want. If people want to change, they'll change.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there are some people where if they have a close enough relationship, they'll listen to the lengthy podcast, or they'll read the long dissertation. But I don't know. I'm At the end of the day, I'm just a man on the internet, right? Uh, so what I say doesn't isn't going to mean much. So there's not much point in me trying to convince people. So people will believe what they want to believe. So
So I got a question for you guys.
mm-hmm.
Do you think so the human body can build steroids? Okay. Right? But do you do you think it's natural for the body to build steroids like performance enhancing drugs?
Do you think we natural? Do we think it's
Yeah,
natural?
like
You mean safe?
um either. So
I guess I'm a little confused because you started off with saying the human body
so
can make steroids, but then you said, "Is it natural for the human body to make steroids?"
yeah, no, I get my questions weird.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this right now.
Okay.
um
We
so
think you're weird, but we
per-
still love you, so it's okay.
that's cool. Happy happy to hear it. Um yeah, so like anabolic steroids they make your muscles grow bigger faster. So like basically what they do is they make it so that your recovery time is shorter. So like I can work out Monday, and if I have anabolic steroids, I can work out Tuesday, and then I can work out Wednesday, and I can work out Thursday, and I can work out Friday, and then I need like a free day, and then I can work out like a Sunday. I can just do that every week, and like I'll just keep getting bigger faster. Because anabolic steroids don't make you um, They don't make you bigger than your max genetic size. They make you get to your max genetic size faster.
And do these anabolic steroids are the ones you're referring to ones that are produced naturally by the body through certain kind of exercises and diet?
Some anabolic steroids that people take are testosterone, which is obviously produced by the body, but some of them aren't.
Oh, okay. And those are the ones you're curious about.
Yeah, like
do you know anybody online who has a good understanding of the trade-offs?
not really. Everybody's got a different opinion.
My understanding is generally it's not the best. Just because there's always a risk to putting an outside element like that into your body. Like extra testosterone, right? Like yeah, that's natural, but having too much can cause anger issues. It can cause
Well, I definitely have high testosterone.
yeah.
Because there's no doubt about that. Like I literally, like, when I was a teenager, I smelled like a wet dog. Like I wasn't even sweating, and people were like, "You smell horrible," and I was like, "That's just the way that is." And I'm 24 now, and I still smell horrible. I don't When I sweat now, I don't literally smell like death, but it's still awful.
Oh my.
My guess is that if you I think you pay a little bit in terms of so the one thing I understand about testosterone is that it's one of the reasons why men have a shorter life expectancy than women. Is like we get strength and aggression and lower neuroticism at the price of a bit of our average longevity. My intuition would be that if you increased the dosage, you would get a little bit more of what men have at a little bit more expense of a little bit more of the price. I think it's just I think you're gonna have to do some hard, ugly, boring TE work of just actually looking at like the molecular composition of these non naturally induced steroids and seeing how those a meta-analysis of how those actually break down with the people who've used them, like the results they've seen or foresee happening. I don't think there's a way of I don't know if there's a cheat code unless you find someone you trust on the internet who really breaks it down in an intuitive way for you to digest. Like, this is what this chemical does, and here's how it. Because those are the people it's easiest to kind of cross-check are the people who give detailed explanations. They're like, this is this chemical.
Because it'll be obvious because it's actually detailed. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So one of them is called Anavar. It was created in 1962 to promote lean muscle mass and those suffering from muscle wasting conditions. Anavar was to create a mild drug with few side effects, so women and children could safely take it. Okay, it was successful in becoming an effective treatment for men, women, and children suffering from catabolic illnesses, burns, infections. So it's a steroid. Anything that helps you with an illness and a burn is a steroid. Pretty much every single time. The chemical name is oxandrolone. And I think this is one of the most common ones. It also makes your bones more dense. Which it just sounds like it's a better thing all around. But
again, nothing exists for free, so there's going to be a trade-off somewhere. I guess my question is why are you looking into steroids? Are you trying to get jacked?
Well, I think I already am jacked, but I think I produce natural steroids. I have obviously I have high testosterone, but I think I could be one of these people because I literally work out 7 days a week, and I get up every morning and I stretch out And as soon as I'm done stretching, I'm like, I'm good to go.
Maybe
Like,
that's possible.
You want to try kind of doing something high-end athlete aside from boxing?
yeah. So this was crazy. I went to the boxing place today. I get up there. I'm talking to the guy, and I'm like, so like, how big are are the heavyweights and stuff? And he's like, well, you would never compete in a heavyweight. And I was like, okay. He's like, I think you would be we can get you under 205. And I was like hell, you can get me under 205. Like, I'd have to be 33% body fat to get under 2. And I mean, if I lost 25 pounds of muscle and like 20 pounds of fat, yeah, I could get under 205 from 250. But I'd have to lose 25 pounds of muscle. Like, that, you know how hard that would be? I would basically just stop eating. 50 pounds is like, a pound of fat is 2,500 calories, right? So to lose a pound of fat, you have to be in a 500 calorie deficit every day for 5 days. Okay? So to lose 25 pounds, that takes almost half a year.
That's a long. That's a long stretch of self-induced misery.
Right.
So you're trying to bulk up to get into the heavier class then?
No, I already am in the heavier class. Anything over 205 is heavyweight.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so like there are literally guys that are like 285. And then like there could be guys who are like 210. And they're fighting in the same competition. Like, no, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's actually wild.
Yeah.
Like,
the 285 guys better have some serious skill to make up for that deficit.
But that's his thing though, is that he was like, well, boxing isn't about like strength. And I was like, then what's it about then? Like, I was like, what are you talking about? It's just,
well, how did he answer? What is it about?
Like, he didn't really answer that question. And he's like, well, we do a lot of cardio. I'm like, I get, like, if you're in a weight class that isn't the super heavy, okay? Everybody's going to be about the same weight. And then it's based on skill and, like, how tough you are and things like that. But when you're in, like, when you're above 205, it's literally like anything goes. Like, there could be a 40-pound weight difference, and the dude is just, like, ripped out of his mind versus a guy who is, like, pretty strong, but not built like a tank. Like, there's...
Maybe they're going for percentage at that point. Maybe they're going for percentage of difference rather than the number. Rather than, for example, 30-pound difference, that's a difference of 13% body weight rather than 17% or whatever. Maybe that's the logic behind that.
Yeah, I just think people are bigger now. Like, we just...
Yeah, outgrown the metrics. You're right. Yeah, I can see that.
I think there should just be more weight classes. But, like, heavyweights are also kind of rare. Like, most people that are lean aren't going to be 235.
Going to get down to 10% body fat, 5% body fat. That would be dope. Gotta go all the way down. 0% body fat. Hello?
Back.
Hey, sorry, it disconnected me.
Did it disconnect the recording too?
No, that's from a separate system.
You want
And
to guess chapter 4 next week?
I guess the question is how much did you get from reading it? Did you get a lot of notes?
Intermediate. The second half, no. A few. We might be able to cover it this evening, to be honest. No, I did take my own advice and I just pinpointed on the aspects that I actually found to be the most interesting.
Yeah.
So, not a whole lot of notes.
so you're supposed to give Anavar. So it's a steroid, right? And when you give Anavar to someone, it makes them like more muscular and everything because it's basically testosterone, but like in a different form. So when they were giving it to women, they were like, you'll have smaller breasts, more hair growth, deepening of voice, and also clitoral enlargement.
Oh.
Pretty funny. And the average age of the girls in the study was 9 years old because you're supposed to give it to children who have like muscle wasting disease.
There you go. Sheesh. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is.
Um, yeah, let's try to. I guess we could try to knock this out, and if we're not, then we'll.
Continue the second half next time.
Yeah. Because I got a few notes, but I didn't take too many. So. Again, the general impression I got was that this is still going into the history of it, and the history of it, um, is still kind of boring. So, like the last 10 pages, I didn't even get anything. So,
Last 10 pages. Last 10 pages. I've only got I got a few things, but not much.
okay. Well, let's get this party started then.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right.
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4.
This is part 2. We hit part 2 of the book, chapter 4, Color in History, Relative and Absolute.
Yes.
And interestingly, the title itself says like 80% of what we need to extract from this chapter.
Right. So, first page, I didn't get anything particularly special. I made a note that of what it's trying to do in this first page is they're trying to define different ways of explaining color art. And then I have a note here of where he specifically tries to explain what it is. What this chapter does is offer a number of synchronic and diachronic ways of looking at the uses of color in medieval and modern art. I was like, okay, maybe it will say something. So, and those are the only two notes that I got for the first page. So,
okay, for me, on the first page is that I thought it was interesting that he mentions a bibliographical essay from 1946 on colors and literature, and the guy who ran this study or this essay concluded that there was only very little interchange between the way people used color in art and then the way people would describe those colors in literature. So it was like people in the medieval ages, or even in the early industrial period. It's like when artists would actually is like the difference between the world that's in your imagination and then the world that it's like how oftentimes you can get authors who will write about war, or they'll write about rivers, write about geography, or they write about whatever, or they write about language. It's like, but their understanding and like what those things mean to them is kind of a caricature of what it is, the way people actually use it. So what this guy was who did this essay was noting was the distinction between how people portray art colors in writing as opposed to how artists actually use those colors when they're painting. Yeah. And the guy was like, hey, the way people describe colors when they're writing about them in their books isn't the same way we use colors when we have to put them down on a canvas. And it's just that distinction right there that I noted away for future reference. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. File that away in the back of my head. We'll reference it later. White. Oh, this is just another confirmation of a feature we've already picked out a long time ago, which was black and white were the first two quote unquote colors, shades that were mentioned in any society.
Yeah.
White, black, those were given a name first, and then red. Consistently always red. After red, it gets a little bit sketchy. Sometimes yellow comes next. Sometimes green. Depends on the culture. Depends on the context. Depends even on the interpretation of the word, because sometimes, according to something I read here, sometimes green and yellow didn't even necessarily have different terms.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a little confusing, because there was something going on in our minds at the time when we looked at green and we looked at yellow, and they made some kind of association of like these terms are more or less they're compatible in their importance and their significance to us right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ancient texts on the indecipherability of colors and shades. Why did I write that down? Ancient texts on the indecipherability of colors and shades. This, I think, kind of goes back. I think this kind of goes back to the fact that even today, most of the shades of colors we can see with our naked eye don't really have a name.
Yeah.
And back in the earliest days of society, it's like they could see different colors. It's like, but without any, it's like, but they would have one word. It's like, so it's like, for example, red. In some languages, it was like it was like the core of that word was the color that we would kind of think of as red, but it could also sweep out to include like orangish shades, and it would also kind of sweep out to include some yellowish shades. And so the ancients, it's like they didn't really have the same level of granularity in describing the colors that we have now, or understanding how they worked or where they came from or anything much about them. And so they were, as I guess we kind of take for granted today, just how much we've already been given to work with just by having the labels and the terminology and the symbols that we have access to right now. Because the ancients, there was a lot of ambiguity with how they understood the colors, how they labeled them, how they used them, etc. Less than there is today.
Yeah.
Evidently.
Kind of like the Wild West of colors, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the conclusion of the first page here is I have the medieval world was unstable when it came to color. The only truly fixed points were white and black, or light and dark. And the author is curious about what consequences this has for the history of art. And then we move on to the second chapter heading, which is color and symbol, I believe, right? Yeah, color as symbol,
Yes.
because that covers the first two sections. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, let's see. Color as symbol. I made a note to mention how penance and mourning was like they made mention of how white and black, and how and even in the Middle Ages, black was used for penance and mourning, and was thus used for Advent and Lent, right? And we even see that today still. White of innocence and purity, and was used on the Feast of the Virgin, which we still use today. And red was used for the feast of both apostles and martyrs, uh, which is still used today. So I thought that was a kind of an interesting note that he made mention of. I also thought it was kind of interesting some of the they make mentions of the next paragraph under next to that, where they're trying to create a color system and trying to codify a rainbow type system. But it was just kind of interesting to see how what colors they were putting next to each other to make that distinction and those distinctions. So uh, and then also another note I made mention is how they were also still doing the red and blue dynamic, where so
Mm-hmm.
fire and water, it was glossed as a symbol of destruction of mankind. By water at the deluge and by fire at the last judgment. Fire, red and blue, which is usually the main denotations of fire and water, uh, that still exists today as like one of the classic color clashes and color combos of, and even internally, like in my color system, like it usually creates explosions of because of the clash between slow emotions and ambitious emotions. So that was another fun note that I thought I'd make mention of.
And I actually missed that.
Yeah. And then uh, after that, that's all that I got for color as a symbol.
Okay, I
Yeah.
have a few. I've got a few notes here, and one of them is one of the interesting things I saw here was um so John Gage here, he says that in ancient and medieval cultures, the symbolism of color is best extracted from the ritual and the context surrounding it, rather than the other way around. So nowadays, there's many color contexts in which, like, we can, like, for example, you remember Dark Brandon. You were talking about Dark
Yeah.
Brandon in your recent video thing. Is what happened was is we actually were able to contextualize like the emotions around Dark Brandon based on the colors.
Mm-hmm.
What John Gage here is saying, like, when you go way back to when we just started using colors, like when they were kind of a novel thing, we just kind of had access and technology and the leisure time to use it. He was like that. He was like, you can't do what you did with the Dark Brandon thing. He was like, we have to do it the other way around. First, we look around the contexts surrounding the colors.
Mm-hmm.
Then we infer what the symbolism of the color means by repeated use in context, and then we kind of work back, like you were saying, to a central core
Yeah.
thingy bob. And so he says here, color is a symbol. He's like, in ancient and medieval culture, symbolism of the color is best extracted from the ritual or the symbolism and the context surrounding it. Um, the example he gave specifically was a piece of art in which the Trinity was represented by the same artist with different colors.
Yeah.
So they talk about the Trinity, and then he uses one set of colors, and then the same artist uses different colors to represent the same core idea. And it's like, well, what is the like? Okay, of all the colors he could have chosen, he chose these ones in this context. Why?
Yeah.
Why these? Right, in this context. And then going back to what you were talking about on the red, white, the black, red, and white. I thought this was super interesting because on some of my readings, when when I had people who liked those three colors, the way I would explain them to them is like the three first colors, the three oldest colors, and the three colors that tend to be repeated most often in religious rituals, like the Chinese, like the Japanese shrine maidens, right? Like the Christian church, it's like you have the black, you have the red, you have the white. Many Hindu traditions, black, red, and white. Um, and so Egyptian religion, you had South Egypt, Western Egypt, Northern Egypt. They were distinguished with black, red, and white. And so the use of those three colors in the church iconography, I feel like is a very I think it's no accident that those three colors lodged so deeply in the minds of the popes and the people who were describing the systems
Yeah.
and coming up with the estimates. And then they kind of struggled a bit to find something as definitive for the other colors because red, black, and white, it's like those latched on. It's like for millions of years of evolution, those latched on to our 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 emotions and our perceptual organs, like our eyes, for a reason. And I think that's why they're replicated so often throughout, like ancient rituals and religions. Let's see, and the way they do use them, and the way they explain them in the 12th century is very, I would say, is very compatible to how the West understands them now, and the way yet you explain them in your readings. Since the 6th century, white was used to denote Christ in the Transfiguration, and sometimes gold, right?
Yeah.
And so the white and the gold combo, like we know what they mean when they're put together. In the 6th century was kind of the first time in art we see those two symbols not put together, but used interchangeably. Later on in history, they would be put together.
Yeah.
Let's see. Interesting outlier in the 13th century. So from the 6th century onward, it was very common to see Christ in the Transfiguration as white and gold. But later on in the 13th century, an artist in Macedonia painted his robes pale green and pale red. And I don't know what the significance of that is. Just putting it down for future reference. Okay. And then I wrote down some of his observations about the surprising uniformity from the rooms of St. Peter Basilica and some Eastern and Western churches about how blue and yellow. And I remember you talking about the dichotomy of blue and yellow, about how blue and yellow were used to depict some of the clothing on the Apostle Peter, surprisingly frequently.
Yeah.
The author states that blue and yellow were clearly considered as simple colors rather than a family of related colors. This is kind of... I feel like there's something here that we could pull out in the future. I don't know what we can do with that right now, but right now, distinctly, the robes of Peter and the apostles, the core of the robe color scheme is blue and purple, blue and yellow, and the colors that they use around them are colors that the ancients seem to have often considered to be related or families of that same color. So it's like how we consider like teal or sky blue or like pink to be a subset of red, sky blue, like azure, like in Spanish they actually give it an entirely different name, but we in English consider it, it's like, even though they switched like the clothing of the apostles or of Peter, in most instances it's like they weren't with a core color and just kind of wrapped the colors that they would use around like a central theme.
Yeah.
A central, seemingly identifiable theme, like they were still trying to get at something. Either that or they were just following a trend or their interpretation of what those intuitions meant. I do not understand enough about what the author here is trying to say to pull out the core of that, but it did interest me.
Yeah.
And that is all I have on color as symbol.
Yeah. I think the core of what the author's saying in that point is probably just trying to highlight the effect that these differences also happened on Peter as well. That his core associations also changed throughout the centuries as well. I did find it interesting that it was blue and yellow though, because in my color system, blue and yellow are opposites emotionally. Blue is depth, yellow is spontaneity, or it can translate to light, but not in the same way that white can. And so, I guess in association to Peter or to Saint Peter, it would be a very quick way to highlight the idea that Peter, betrayed Jesus 3 times, right? Because he felt this shame, he had this moment, but then he also kind of had a turnaround where he was like all in all at once. And that would be just a very instant and fast way to be like, this is who he is, right? And then not only that, while blue and yellow are opposites emotionally, they don't fight like blue and red do. So they're not on the same team, but they're in such different camps that it's more of a switch. So he's not going to have the deconstruction or the explosiveness. So that would be better to showcase for Peter, just to be like he can do both seamlessly, right? He can be deep, but he can also bring joy. So
he's like a deep blue, like loyal, dutiful son of God, but he's also the yellow-bellied chicken. He turned around and ratted him out, right?
Yeah.
It's like just kind of that duality, the duality of man. Mm-hmm. Peter, like he has the faith to jump out of the boat and to follow his savior into the waters, but then he also gets, cold feet and starts sinking. Then he chops a man's ear off for his savior. Right? Yeah. But then there's also the and something I missed here was Thomas. Doubting Thomas is one of the very few, maybe the only disciple that's mentioned here that was depicted in a gray robe.
Yeah.
Right, and like how much of it is confirmation bias and how much of it is actually the case that like the guy with the gray robe is the one who's like, I'm not going to believe until I put my finger right, like in like kind of that more realism.
Yeah, that realism. Yeah, using the logic, right? You have to see it before I can believe it. So
let's see. Peter's cloak varies from brownish gray to pale green to yellow ochre, and his tunic from blue to purple. Let's see, in the scene of Doubting Thomas over blue with a contemporary mosaic. Let's see. And he has a deep blue tunic and a grayish cloak in the scene of the raising of Lazarus. Oh, no. Hold on. I might be misreading it because of the way he's writing here. Let's see. It might be Peter who has the grayish at the scene. Thomas, let's see. Sacred Marco. Peter's cloak varies from brownish gray, pale green to yellow ochre, purple. So yeah, these are still colors all around the bluish and yellow shades. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, in the scene of Doubting Thomas, no. So this is Peter. There is like in the scene of Doubting Thomas, they're still talking about Peter. and
Yeah.
Peter's wearing a grayish cloak, brownish gray cloak.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Over pale green. He has a deep blue tunic, grayish cloak, the scene of raising. As he cuts off the high priest's ear, he wears greenish yellow over deep purple. So yeah, it is rotating. It is rotating around the central core feature.
Yeah.
But no, the grayish, brownish gray is one of his cloaks. They don't mention Thomas's cloak.
Yeah.
So
Right.
false positive.
But he is kind of doing a story, right? So, which is kind of interesting.
He is
right?
though.
So in the doubting Thomas, he's wearing a pale green cloak over a blue tunic. So while he's doubting, he's wearing blue, and the pale green means like he's pale is a sense of doubt, and the green would be like I'm doubting how I feel about this. Over the blue would be like I don't trust my own emotions on this. So he's kind of doubting his doubts. Um, and then dual brown cloak over a pale green is kind of is doing similar things but different. I know that's a weird thing. So dual brown, I guess what would dual brown be like? Would that be like a pale brown? I'm not sure. He didn't really exactly
I don't
describe
know.
what dull was, but you still have the pale green. So the dull brown over the pale green would be like he's trying not to think about
I'm
it.
guessing it's all muted. From the
Yeah.
sounds of it, this is a muted scene. Muted colors, kind of a
Mm-hmm.
brownish, grayish sheen.
Yeah. And then in the Neomoni and Chios, as he's wearing the deep blue tunic and a grayish cloak raising of Lazarus, right? He's trying to kind of cut off his emotions, kind of like in disbelief as it's happening. And then when he cuts off the high priest's ear, he wears greenish yellow over a deep purple. Purple is spirituality, and greenish yellow would be like, I'm okay with doing this. And in that moment, he's this is when the captors are taking Jesus, right? So he's fighting for his faith in a way. So. But maybe I'm reading too deep into that. No, I'm assuming they're all in the same place. But it's kind of. It seems like the colors were picked depending on the scene.
There was a sort of. It's like you have to assume. It's like why the assumptions that we're making here is why would the artist with enough colors and resources at this disposal make this specific depiction over another, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, what would it's like in a scene like this, right? It's like a religious scene, kind of a worshipful scene. It's like they're going to pay more attention. One would think. Here's a weird thing about the ancient. Here's a weird dichotomy, a weird paradox about ancient anything, and this becomes relevant specifically in the aspect of colors. They simultaneously had few options, but everything that they did have, free time, like paints, colors, was more expensive because they had less options,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was more valuable. It's like, so they might not have had the granularity of vocabulary or the options of colors and shades that we have right now, but the ones that they did have to them were ostensibly very precious.
Yeah.
And it's like, so why would somebody at this time of the age where you couldn't just go to Walmart, right, and buy your food, where you actually had time to sit around and paint something on very limited resources? It's like, well, why this image in conjunction with these specific colors?
Mm-hmm.
Assuming you had enough optionality to go with anything else. And every once in a while, we're going to get it wrong because sometimes the brown could just be analysis paralysis, or maybe he ran out of other colors, or maybe he made a mistake and was like, I'll just go with it because I didn't have the text to undo it, right? Like, but by and large, it's like we combine our knowledge of that context, right? And there are ostensible motivations with our understanding now of how those colors have come to kind of strengthen those intuitions to the point where we can kind of more easily pull them out of their uses now. On top of comparing them to all the other artists who were using those same colors for context back then, right? And it's like, and then make the best guess you can.
Right?
That's what we did. So
yeah, we did.
All right, red and purple in the scale of colors. What have we got?
I did not get too much here. The one note I found that was interesting was that I guess before anything, one of the ways they tried to make purple was combining red, black, and white together in specific proportions. Which I thought was kind of a fascinating detail about the history of purple. But I guess for me, it kind of chalked up to more history, and the history is kind of getting lost on me. So that was all I really got for that section.
With purple, what stuck out to me was I can see it. I saw it taking place here was what you did. We pointed out in our readings was the association of purple with royalty.
Yeah.
What was happening is that was happening here strong because you see the correlation they keep making with purple with colors like or with terminology like lustrous or brilliant or radiant like the ethemist, even though purple's a dark color.
Yeah.
And then they would tie it to red, and then they tied red to gold and yellow, and they tied to white. They did the chain reaction.
Gotcha.
It's like the emotions we associate with terms like gold or light, like gold right now, like royalty, rich, wealth, light, whatever, radiance. It's like they got that when they thought about purple and royalty, expensive, kings, whatever. It's like that image of high, image of heaven, image of royalty, light, radiance, ethemist, and then it was only a short step from that, but between that and the human mind trying to wrap some kind of TI explanation around those FI emotions, and it was like, oh, it's like purple is light and it's radiant, and it's like red, which is like yellow, which is like white. Like there's something white about purple. You can see it shining through, even though like technically it's closer to most shades of it, or as many shades of it as not, are closer to dark, right? Closer to black.
Yeah.
And so I found that to be a fascinating little insight into like the psychology of the people who were messing around with purple at the time, and why it still carries on a connotation of royalty to this day. Because like it hit so hard that people who looked at purple couldn't. Some people at least who looked at purple, like their first initial emotional reactions were of light and radiance, and then they went on to white and red and gold and stuff like that.
No, I get it. I get it now. So that was where the association with purple came. So they're like, oh, this could be royalty. This feels royal. These also feel royal. Oh, I guess what's the connection between them? So.
Yeah, it was a huge leap of logic. It was a tremendous leap of logic what they just pulled off there, but I realized, oh, that's not logic. They're using logic to retroactively justify an emotional FI experience.
Yeah.
And the FI experience is associated with the traditions of the culture and the inaccessibility of getting purple at that time, and the fact that only royal people afford it. Mm-hmm. So this is one of those this is a nurture over nature association with purple, because you said on those old things where they were giving a list of the colors, purple was right before blue and blue was right before black.
Yeah.
Right? And so they were like white, yellow, red, orange, something else, purple, blue, black, right? And so visually, the ancients were like purple, blue, black. Emotionally, the ancients were like purple, radiance, light, something, and that was had nothing to do with logic or experience of the biological aspect of purple. That was the cultural aspect of purple coming in and muddying the waters.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense.
And then we get into a fight in which people are, let's see. Okay. Pope Innocent claims that green is an intermediate color between black, red, and white. Okay, so this goes back to the Catholic Church. The people we mentioned previously, Pope Innocent III and some of his, and William, and a few other people who are making the vestments for the Catholic Church, and they were like red, black, and white. There's something that really resonates about these colors, right? And then they started thinking about other colors, and one of the guys was like, green is more beautiful than red because it lies in between white, which dilates the eye, and black, which contracts it, right? And so they're looking at our bodily responses to the different colors, and they're like, oh, dark colors do this to the eye, light colors do that to the eye, and green lies in between. Like there's a certain comfort. I think this goes back to your observation. I think intuitively they were picking up. I think their SI was picking up maybe on the fact that green is like the most comforting colors, one of the most comforting colors for us to look at.
Yeah.
And they were associating that sense of comfort with comfort as a positive sensation. Beauty is a positive sensation. Relaxation is a positive sensation. They're like positive, positive, positive. And then William was like, therefore it's more beautiful than red because, well, probably because he liked it more. And then probably because, and this is super, okay, this is interesting. That's a super tangent that I do not want to go on right now. It's getting late. So, and so I think so. William was claiming that green was more beautiful than red because it was what was happening is he was associating I think what he was doing was associating a sense of relaxation that he got from being around green with balance. He was like, oh, relax, calm, balance. What's the opposite of balance? Extremes. What are extremes? He's like, oh, white and black. Those are the extremes. Yeah. What's in the middle of extreme? What's balance? Green, right? He's like, oh, green. But this associates with your exposition of green, which you say green is a balancing color, right? And I think what happened was he was feeling that green was a balancing color, and this was his kind of his haphazard way of trying to explain. Okay, this is him wrapping a TI explanation framework around an emotional experience again. He's like, so he's experiencing green as a balancing, calming color, and he's like, oh, this means that logically it is more beautiful than red because it lies in between black. But it doesn't. It just feels less polarizing than black.
Yeah.
And white, right? And that's kind of a different thing.
Yeah, I remember reading that and I didn't understand it. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, a lot of it came out as I was trying to explain his ostensible thinking process behind that. Roger Bacon, I have written down here, is the earliest author to have regarded red as the metal. Did I write that down? I said metal. Is that what I meant to say? Did I mean to say metal? Roger Bacon. Let's see. I said Roger Bacon is the earliest author to have noted red as the metal color. Middle! That's what I meant to say. Middle color. So Roger Bacon disagrees with William. He's like, no. Green is not the middle color. Red is the middle color. But in the Byzantine dictionary, 1,000 years before, red is associated with the light side of the color scale and comes after yellow. The list goes white, yellow, red, brown, blue, black. The author goes on to denote antiquity's interchangeability of red and gold. Okay, this here is a little bit interesting. Roger Bacon, I think, falls into the same trap. Okay, so the Byzantines, they had their own researchers, and about 1,000 years ago, they were like, they're the ones who made that list we referenced earlier, and they put red like almost um, slightly on the light half of the color spectrum, but also kind of in the middle, to be honest, now that I'm looking at it and out here. It is kind of in the middle. Roger Bacon said to him it was kind of in the middle. But there's another way to, and historically it is in the middle, because historically we got the extremes first, right? So this is the difference between historicity and then I guess psychobiological like reaction. So green mentally and emotionally calms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Red does it, but after white and black, it was the first color to show up on the scene, right? So it's like we had the two extremes, and then red shoots out in between them. It's like, so historically, it's in the middle, right? And so Roger Bacon is correct vis-a-vis one framework, right? And then William was also correct through a different model. But the problem is they're both Roger Bacon. Red is the middle color. I don't know. I'm not going to say much more because I actually do not remember Bacon's reasoning. He might have explained his reasoning for why he thinks red is the middle color. Whatever his reasoning is, I don't know if I'm going to find it viable or not, but I just do think it's interesting that William is correct in terms of the way green affects us, and Roger Bacon is correct in terms of the chronology. And that's it. I'll just leave it at that.
Yep, that's they're both right in different ways.
Yep. Okay. Medieval blues. The best chapter subheading in this chapter.
The best
blues.
Chapters? Yeah, it did have a couple.
Whatever you got.
Let's see, how many pages is Medieval Blues? Okay, so the first thing I got is that they make mention to how blue was seen as essentially akin to darkness, and red represented the fiery nature of good angels. We're seeing that dynamic between red and blue again. And blue, if you go deep enough, like the darker the blue, the more black it becomes. And blue, when it gets dark enough, it can get really close to what black feels like. So, which is why blue and black in my system tends to be can tend to be a toxic combination, just because those two colors can feed into each other. And red and I would put red more on the light side than on the dark side, just because red is very ambitious and outgoing. So that kind of fits on here as well. I thought it was interesting how the Greek color theory with the four natures. I just decided to underline it just to remember where it did not include blue, but it had air as red and fire as yellow. So I thought that was interesting as well, because I would not make air red.
No.
Yeah. What is air now? It's usually white, sometimes green.
Green, yeah.
Kind of depends on the magic system.
It's usually like you just said. It's usually like a transparent, like frizzly transparent white, or it is a light green.
Yeah.
Breezy greenish color.
Yeah. So again, I just think that's fascinating. But fire is like considered life, right? And air can be like an element of fire, and so there is a connection there. But even then, they put fire as yellow and air as red. So I guess, well, if yellow is more life than red is, okay, that makes sense. That's probably why they did it. Fire is more lively than air,
Mm,
so fire would be the yellow because yellow is more lively than red. So, but they were getting that same sense of movement and that same sense of fluidity, and so they probably went with red and air because, um, cause like because air is just there, we need it, but it doesn't have that same fire as
vitality. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like you have to remember that most fires are actually orange.
yeah,
Is like halfway in between red and yellow. It's like so depending on the way that they're related, they could pull out either side.
yeah, that's
It's
true
like,
too.
but historically, for whatever reason, it's like the yellow depiction of fire in most contexts and didn't stick. Like sometimes I still see it, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like sometimes, like on video games or art or something, I'll see like the fire symbolized like a little yellow icon.
yeah,
Um, but most of the time, it's associated with red or orange.
or orange, or orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so I also did a fun detail here where Patrick Rudisward discovered that this light could be both red and blue when they considered the question, "What color is divine light?" I was like, "Hey,
Mm,
you're getting it," because
mm.
it can be red and blue depending on how you're trying to interpret it, I guess. So it's one of those every emotion can be every emotion kind of things.
Yes.
So
One of those non-duality moments.
yeah, yeah. So in the next paragraph, he makes mention uh, of a special mosaic where it's dark in the center and then it becomes progressively lighter towards the edge. And makes mention that that was kind of unique because normally what happens is that they'll have Christ or the angel be white in the center and then it slowly gets darker out towards the edges. Uh, and I thought this was fascinating was because what the note I put down was that darkness can often be used to help emphasize light. So that's probably what they were doing here too was that yeah there was that centerpiece of the light, but they added the darkness not necessarily to make it dark, but to try to emphasize the brightness of Christ. So, and that's also kind of one of the points where sometimes the color isn't as important as the context of what they're trying to say. So, uh, if they're using they could be using black. Black is the most obvious, right? But if they're using like a dark blue or dark brown, yeah, sure that there might be a different connotation, but the main point they're using that darkness in the center is to highlight the brightness, not necessarily the color itself. So that's one of those contextual moments where it changes depending on context. So, and I think he does mention that eventually, uh, but I think it's later near the end of the section. Um, then and then I even make a mention here is or like John Gage catches this, and I even make him write a note here is that John Gage is overanalyzing things. Context is everything. Where he actually makes a point of it, and then he second guesses himself on that. He's like, but maybe it actually is the color. Maybe the color does actually mean something. But like, you've gone too far. You lost it. So, uh, like again, even then, like,
Second guessed his intuition, overanalyzed his intuition. He's like, I feel like, but then maybe it kind of doubled back a bit.
right, right. Um, and then when it came to the second one, where he makes mention about how like God is putting down his hand in the top corner, and how usually any depiction of God is bright, but in this case, the hand coming down is darkened instead of bright. Uh, Usually, when God equals darkness, it usually translates to God is unknowable. So, like, you're
Mm-hmm.
going into the darkness, you're going into the unknown. You can't see unless you're able to see. Uh, so then that's kind of, if you go into look at the picture here, that's kind of what's happening here as well. Is like an unknowable, all-knowing thing is giving you commands to help brighten you, I guess. Um, I thought that was, I thought I'd just make mention of that too, of how they're trying to analyze that. And they don't make mention of the unknowable aspect. They just kind of like let it be and let it move on. So, uh, and then I think that's all I got for this section. Because it's more kind of analyzing art, but because we don't have the rest of the artwork, we can't really do it as well as we did with those two. So
I'm guessing back when you wrote this, getting colored print was quite a doozy. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
He has colored pictures there somewhere. I think with the more
yeah.
modern.
He does. He did in the last chapter, and he will in later chapters too. But but like but like he
Yeah, I see
talks.
it.
But he talks about like the divine darkness is the inaccessible light in which God is said to dwell, and like here the four horses of the apocalypse are used as a dark connotation. It's kind of the same thing. They're used darkly because in a sense they're unknowable. Also, the other attribute is because they're usually bringers of death, which is apocalypse is usually seen as a bad thing. But with this in light of what he's trying to connect it to with God's hand being dark, he's this mention is also a very good theory as well. So
This is a wild game. I've died 9 times in 16 minutes. But I'm also 896, so it's not that bad. But my enemy laner is 873. And so we each have about 40% of the deaths on our own team.
Hmm. And
But
you
also
still
the
brought.
most kills.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that is a brutal game.
Dagyo, what game are you playing? Don't want to do
The
it.
league.
League. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, the nightmare game, you know.
All right, Liquid. Do you want
So
to?
on Medieval Blues, I don't have a whole lot to add that you haven't already picked up on here, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. The main point of the blues in this particular depiction was the dark. What they were looking for was dark, mystery, unknowable,
Mm-hmm.
ineffable, right? And then and then how it kind of, and it is counterintuitive the way they used it. Like you said, it's usually the other way around.
Yeah,
But what they were trying to know here is like the source is like the universe, is like God. Um, he is mysterious, right? He is unknowable. It's like Moses can't see his face.
yeah.
Like there's something about it that we just can never access, and it was kind of shrouded in mystery. And then they pulled out like different Bible verses. He pulls out a list of Bible verses that talks about God in holy darkness, and God in the shadows, God hidden, God obscured, God in dark clouds, God, and it's like, and them trying to capture that image, that unknowability, and that does map onto a connotation that and color psychology of black being mystery, right?
Mm-hmm.
The mystery part, like the mystery aspect, is like it's hidden in shadows. Um, and on the outskirts, there's okay. There was a phrase in the Reformation there's a repeating symbol, a repeating archetype, repeating pattern throughout human history that is after the darkness light, right? And in the
Yeah.
Reformation they called it post tenebris lux, after darkness light. It's like in human psychology, it's like we had like what they would call like the feminine like chaos goddesses before, like the masculine order male gods, right? In human anthropology. It's like we had associations with Mother Earth, right? With the womb, with shadow, with nature, right? Before we had institutions and laws and governors and order, right? So it was like chaos before order, dark before light.
Yeah.
And I see this same pattern repeating, like in this artwork. It's like God. It's like the universe. It's like the Tao, like before humanity and before our knowledge. It's like God is like he's up there, like hidden in the shrouds and the shadows. It's like, but then later on, as we move outward from the so to speak, from point of the Big Bang, it's like things dissipate and they become more differentiated, and we can actually study them and see them, right? It's like, but the source is obscured for, and so I kind of see this as almost like a shadow of that, pun not intended, but kind of like a shadow of that pattern that we've seen, of that quote unquote goddess energy, of that Mother Earth, of that womb, of that primordial darkness, that primordial chaos, that primordial unknowableness, like behind the creation of the world. Like it says in the book of Genesis that 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 in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, and God looked upon the spirit of the waters, right, and moved. God looked and moved upon the spirit of the waters, and they were without form and void, right? The face of the deep without form and was without void, and then God said, right, so there's that setup, right, and then God says, "Let there be light," and there was light, which means before God said, "Let there be light," there was no light. It was just darkness and water, void, chaos, potential, right? And it's like there is that darkness before light motif, that goddess before God motif, that chaos before order motif, replicated that nature before civilization, animal before human motif. I see like that same archetype repeated right here in this particular art, and so that's kind of some of the thoughts I had around this specific depiction here. And aside from that, the only observation I had was that the association of blue being associated with heaven, evidently, they say, the author says, came independently, quite independently of naturalistic identification of blue with heaven. But I think it was both and. It's like blue already being in the sky above probably accelerated its association with concepts like heaven and God and Jesus and intuitions like that. And then the guy says that in the Middle Ages there were blue stained glass put in churches, and the sunlight would shine through it, and so people got like an association, like the only time they saw or encountered blue most of the time in their lives was when it was as a window, and the light shines through the window, and then they associate. But I'm certain it was both that, and then they could walk outside at night or in the daytime and look up, right? And so it's like light through the church, light in the sky, church, God, heaven, sky, God, Father God, heaven, double heaven, despite the fact that it's a darker color. Kind of similar vibe as to what happened in purple. Actually, blue. I looked it up. I googled it a while ago, and I should probably have double checked this just to make sure, because I checked the AI overview and I did peek at the source, but I didn't read through it. So if I'm wrong on this, then we'll just have to mention it in the comments later. But they said that blue came from an old Germanic word that meant to shine or to radiate, and so that some of those connotations that are conveyed here with the intuition that are conveyed here are in the color that we call blue, which is a bit surprising because, like purple,
Yeah.
it is a darker color. So
Right. Fascinating. Fascinating. Hmm. Well, blue and white when they come together, because I was thinking blue sky, white clouds, and also, the heavenly gates is usually, blue, white clouds, and then like golden gates. Um, Blue and white is actually kind of like a. It's not necessarily harmonious, but it's actually kind of a holy combination in my system. Because you know how light blue is the feeling of light, but if
yes,
if you if you make it more complex, you have these deep emotions, that you're trying to feel, and then these white turn these deep emotions positive. And so your all of your empathy and your sadness and your or possibly sadness and all of your thoughts, they turn into positive variants of it. And so they kind of turn into hopes, and they turn into aspirations, and they turn into ideals. And they're not necessarily, they wouldn't be fake ideals because they're things that they're like part of who you are. All of your values are part of who you are. They become positive, and so you'll be more empathetic. More you'll be more unintentionally outgoing. Um, you'll be more
Unintentionally
polite.
outgoing.
So
That's not a real thing.
so
you said
it would be like an introvert who wants to go out and help people, right?
yeah. Unintentionally outgoing is a thing. So, like, for
Yeah.
example, to me,
So
socializing is like going to the gym, right?
yeah.
It's like I almost never like doing it, but I'm always glad I've done it. Like I'm about to go on this trip tomorrow to Arkansas with a friend of mine, and
Right.
I'm just like, what a drag. But he's my friend, right? And
Yeah.
he likes having me there, right? And I'm gonna be glad I went with him because I always am, but I never want to go. But 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 it is. I would describe myself as unintentionally extroverted for an introvert. I get what you're trying to say. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. No, I can see that.
Um, so are we still recording and stuff?
We are.
Yeah. We're winding down though. We're almost done.
Okay, I'll wait until we're done.
Okay.
All right.
So that's all I've got on blue. The point of pointillism is next. Did you get anything from that one?
No, I didn't get really much. The only mention that I could think of was it was an art form or an art style, and it was similar to, I guess, pixel art or Minecraft art, right? Kind of how like in Minecraft they put blocks, and if you scale out, all of a sudden you see the Mona Lisa. It's a very
Yeah.
similar concept. I thought it was fascinating that the way that they did it. I don't think I wrote it down, but it did let me make the connection that I guess the technique that we use to show colors uh, can also highlight, I guess, how we use the color in a painting can be used to signify what they're trying to say as well. It's partially how I use mosaics, but I guess this helped me get a little deeper in the sense that understanding the technique that they used and why they used that technique uh, can help paint a clearer picture of what they're trying to say. So, and that was kind of like with the pixel art because they're using and I just straight up call it pixel art. They're using a specific technique to try to uh, get a clearer idea of what colors they're using and what they're trying to show and what they're saying. So I just imagine Microsoft Paint. You know how like it has the little squares and as you're drawing
Yes.
circles. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought of when I saw them. So
No, you got more out of that than I did.
for Avery, I'm not sure if you can see it. One second. It might not be good, but no, I don't think
Yeah.
you can see it. It's all choppy.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah,
I can't look at it right now since I'm playing the game,
that's fair.
but I've been listening a little bit. Yeah.
All right. But other than that, that was that in connection with some of the other things that I read later. That was the only note that I got for the next 10 pages. So
Okay, yes, more or less the same because they shift out from explicitly talking about color here and more into talking about the ways in which these color illusions were crafted to help change our perception, and to compensate for the lack of them being able to actually use specific colors in some contexts, right?
yes.
Um, and also just kind of noticing the fascination of them using a technique that wouldn't be popular again until the 1880s by the French.
Mm-hmm.
This mosaic kind of approach. Um, but in terms of the actual meaning and the significance of the colors themselves, there is very little that you or I are naturally be interested in the remaining 10
Yeah.
pages that I could pull out. I was trying to pay attention and struggling tremendously.
No, I was too.
Yeah, I kept zoning out. I did get Empedocles, those simple colors to 4, like the 4 base colors: black, white, red, yellow, or green. Those are basically the four oldest colors we have.
Yeah.
Atoms. So this is skipping all the way over to atomics, to atoms and mixtures, which is like theories that different Greek people and artists had about like Democritus apparently had a lost work on colors. That's so unfortunate. Nice to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But he wrote this. Democritus was the guy who came up with the atomic theory of the universe. It was like if you keep cutting things, eventually you'll get to something you can't cut, and whatever that is, that's the fundamental material building block of matter.
Yeah.
And he was kind of theorizing that there's some kind of similarity between colors. Like if you keep analyzing colors down and down and down, eventually you'll get to some aspect of it that's fundamental.
Yeah.
But his work on that hasn't survived, so can't
Sounds,
figure out what he was trying to say.
all right.
Let's see. The luminous imperative. Luminous imperative. They're talking about the importance that people placed in making sure some part of their artwork, the paints they used, were shiny.
Mm-hmm.
Like like whether it was the contrast, right? Like how dark or light it was.
Yeah.
Lots of the very bright stuff was used, as we can predict, in royal and religious artwork.
Mm-hmm.
So royalty, religious. Let's go back to the whole thing again. It's like light, radiance, knowledge, God, holy. Did it pull anything else of use out of that? I think the luminous imperative is the last chapter I have. Yes, it is. Yes, that is all I have. The last thing I have to wrap up with is his conclusion. After he goes through all of this, he says, okay. He was like, we can't, it's like some of these conventions and these pictures and techniques are not entirely interchangeable. He was like, the cultural and ritual context is decisive, which is perhaps to say no more than that. However enticing the idea of a universal of optical responses in history of art, we must be historical relativists in the end, which is to say there are so many different ways that people used artistic mediums to express different emotions that there is no arching law or hard, rigid pattern we can lay down as a one-size-fits-all hermeneutic for interpreting way people interpreted and related to art, colors, and in optical illusions and techniques.
Yeah. Well, that makes. I mean, I agree. Kind of been saying that since the beginning. Like nothing is a hard science, and when it comes to color personality or color theory, um,
It's just a probability distribution.
it's just a probability distribution. But that does make me think again that like I see what he's trying to do, where he's trying to be as open as possible. But I think I'm. It's starting to seem like he's overanalyzing everything to the point where it's like he's not coming to any conclusions. So it doesn't feel like there's any definite answers to anything.
Yep.
So, so it's like that's it's either one or the other. You either be open and try to accept everything, or you come to a conclusion and you leave something out. So, uh, so again, it comes back to I hope that I hope he starts narrowing stuff down later. Um, Not necessarily because I think he'll be right or wrong, but like, uh, I guess like, we're kind of already at that state of trying to leave everything open and everything right. We're more just trying to and understand how we can get a little deeper when we can. So, um, yeah, that's all that I got left. So, all right, with that,
Right.
I will turn off the recording. And 3, 2,